We've already discussed the airspeed indicator and the altimeter. Now let's focus on the last of the pedostatic instruments, the one that makes soaring possible, the variometer. We usually just call it a Vario. The Vario is so important to soaring, we're going to look at it in detail. Before the invention of the Vario, glider pilots literally had to fly by the seat of their pants and feel for the sensation of a rising glider pushing them down into their seats to find areas of rising air. You'll still get that seat of the pants sensation, but as you can imagine, that was not the most reliable system, and glider pilots could not really soar with the birds. Earlier, we said the Vario is a box with a hole that's sensitive enough to detect lift, rising air, and avoid areas of sink, falling air. Now, let's take a look at the two basic types of airs, how they work, and their benefits and limitations. The two basic types are uncompensated and compensated. The first and simplest is the uncompensated variometer. It's connected to the static port on one side and a capacity flask, also called a capacity bottle, on the other. The capacity flask is just an insulated tank for stable air that the Vario uses as a reference to compare against the outside air. If we descend into thicker air, outside air from the static ports flows into the Vario. The higher pressure deflects the diaphragm and the needle moves downward, all while the air flows through that precision hole and into the capacity flask as the pressure tries to equalize. Uh-oh, we're in sync, and the Vario shows us going down. The Vario scale shows our vertical speed in knots, just like the airspeed indicator. But when we catch a great thermal going up, the process is repeated in reverse. Now we're climbing into thinner air, and the higher pressure air from the capacity flask deflects the diaphragm in the other direction, moving the needle upward. The air is now flowing through the precision hole and out through the static port as the pressure tries to equalize. Now the upward indication tells us we're in lift. The uncompensated Vario works great, but it has one drawback. It's susceptible to stick thermals. An uncompensated Vario doesn't know how fast we're flying. So if we pull back on the stick and trade airspeed for altitude, air flows out through the Vario and registers a climb, even if there was no lift. We call this false indication a stick thermal. We caused it ourselves by pulling back on the stick. And you could waste a good amount of time looking for lift that was never there. The opposite is also true. If you push the stick over and trade altitude for airspeed, the Vario reads that as sink, and you might try to avoid an area that was perfectly calm. That's the big drawback of an uncompensated Vario. It's only really accurate at a constant airspeed, but still, these simple devices require no electrical power at all and are often still used as backups in gliders with a more sophisticated electric Vario. To solve for this problem, the other type was developed, the total energy compensated variometer, or just compensated Vario. Instead of being connected to the static port, the total energy compensated Vario is connected to a total energy probe, hence the name. It's a clever way to eliminate stick thermals. The total energy probe has a small venturi, or just a tube with either slots or holes on the back side, at the end of a long tube, and is usually attached to the glider's tail where the air is undisturbed in flight. Due to the suction effect, as you go faster and faster, the pressure at the total energy probe gets lower and lower. When we first detect lift, we pull back to slow down and circle in the thermal. As we slow down, the suction at the probe decreases and it senses a higher pressure. At the same time, the climb up into thinner air lowers the atmospheric pressure. These two pressure changes cancel each other out, and the compensated vario tells us just what the air itself is doing. An uncompensated vario can be fooled when you're trading airspeed for height, but a total energy compensated vario senses both your airspeed and your height, your total energy, and tells you if you're gaining energy in lift or losing it in sink. Compensated varios usually have advanced features like an audio signal, so you don't even have to look down, and you can keep your eyes out of the cockpit where they belong. We listen for a happy increase in pitch when we're in lift, and a sad decrease in pitch when we're in sink. Another advanced feature on this compensated vario is an additional averager dial that tells you how good the thermal has been during the last complete circle. It helps you decide if you've gotten everything you're going to get out of this thermal and whether it's time to move on to the next one. Your glider may have more than one vario. For soaring, pilots normally rely on the compensated vario and use the uncompensated vario as a backup. To review, there are two basic types of varios, uncompensated and compensated. The uncompensated vario is connected to the static ports, while the compensated vario is connected to a total energy probe. The uncompensated vario is susceptible to stick thermals, while the compensated vario cancels them out. The uncompensated vario is most accurate at a constant airspeed, but the compensated vario is still accurate when changing airspeeds. The vario might be just a box with a hole in it, but it's at the very heart of soaring flight. Now, let's see how the FAA might ask you about this on your test. When pulling back on the stick while cruising in a glider without a total energy compensator installed, the key is without a total energy compensator. In that case, the vario will indicate a climb, A. Next, a stick thermal that's a false thermal indication of lift that happens when you pull back on the control stick with an uncompensated variometer. You're trading airspeed for altitude, B. The device that reduces climb and dive errors on the variometer caused by airspeed changes is C, the total energy compensator. The advantage of a total energy compensator is that this system, C, reduces the climb and dive errors on variometer indications caused by airspeed changes. Let's look at just one more. Which is true concerning variometers with total energy systems? These instruments, A, sense airspeed changes and tend to cancel resulting climb and dive indications. And that's what the FAA wants you to know about variometers.